If there was one person that I could hire and bring over into the fold of GBTV and make sure that everybody in America heard him live, heard him speak in front of a crowd, it would be Andrew Napolitano. Judge Napolitano is a guy who I used to think, honestly, was crazy. I'd watch him on TV and I'd say, that guy's out of his mind nuts, because he would piss me off sometimes. But as I have grown to love him and to also know that he is right 99% of the time. And he has become a very good friend of mine. Judge Napolitano is with us. He's got a new book out. It is Dangerous to Be Right When the Government is Wrong, The Case for Personal Freedom. Judge, how are you?
Glenn, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very good.
I never knew you thought I was crazy.
Oh, come on. Everybody thought you were crazy at one point. I think the world has just caught up to you, Judge.
Oh, God.
I mean,
I'll tell you what, this place is not the same without you, and I don't want to get too personal on the air, but I miss you terribly,
well,
my
thank
friend.
you.
It's a delight to be with you, even for just a few moments.
Well, thank you. I do want to sit down and talk to you on the TV show about your book and where you think we're headed. Let's spend a couple of minutes here on the book and the way out, Judge. What is the way out here?
Well, the way out is a game changer, Glenn, a game changer in the White House and a game changer in a consensus in the Congress. We need someone who will materially change the status quo. If the Republicans are going to elect someone just because he's anybody but Obama, we will not have a game changer. This promise of hope and change has brought us the worst despair in your lifetime and mine, and we haven't had change. We've had more of the same thing over and over again. In terms of the structure of the system, I think we need actually to repeal certain amendments to the Constitution. If we repealed the 16th Amendment, that's the income tax, the government would be forced to shrink itself down into the confines of the Constitution, and it couldn't do many of the things that it now does, which are not authorized by the Constitution and which bankrupt us.
How would we pay for the loans that we already have?
Well, we'd have to pay off those loans first, because we can't default on those loans. On the other hand, if we did just default on those loans and start from scratch, where would that bring us? I don't know. The government's been defaulting all the time. Every time the government devalues something, it's a default. Every time FDR stole gold from someone and paid less for it than it was worth and sold more for it than he sold it for more than he paid for it, it was a default. We're in a very, very, very serious downward spiral. And the progressives who started this 100 years ago are back in control of this bus, and they're aiming it over the end of a cliff, and I don't think they even know what they can do to save us from this.
I don't think they're trying to. Judge, you were one of the only people when I first started talking about this that got it, knew it, been watching it. And one of the very few that as I would say, hey, riots are coming on the streets,
yes,
and these things are coming. You were one of the very few that would even stand with me, even over at Fox.
You've been unbelievably prescient, Glenn, and a lot of people thought you and I, for agreeing with you, were a little off the wall when you predicted this stuff could happen here. We just step outside your apartment. You don't know where this mob is going to be next. This is happening here. They're not burning yet, and they're not destroying yet. They are interfering with businesses. They are interfering with other people's freedom. They are interfering with your freedom to travel, with your freedom to be in your neighborhood. They're showing up at some restaurants and just sort of, in a filthy and disgusting way, occupying the place. That's a violation of the private property rights of the owner of the restaurant.
What's disturbing to me is there are a lot of libertarians and a lot of people like me. Judge, I'm against the Fed. I'm against this gigantic government. I'm against TARP. I'm against all of it. However, you have to know who you're in bed with.
Yes.
And it's disturbing to me that there are a lot of libertarians who are now starting to come out and say, you know what, stand with them, bring it down.
We sent, Freedom Watch sent some of our producers, our more libertarian producers down there to see if they could find some of their friends, and they did. They found a lot of these "Don't Tread on Me" folks, and they found folks who were saying "End the Fed, end the wars, end the IRS." Now, the crowd down there is not saying "End the IRS." They want the IRS to steal money from those who have succeeded and give it to those who they feel are entitled to it. But just as the Tea Party, in my view, was co-opted by the Republican establishment, this gaggle downtown is being co-opted by labor unions and by the progressives in the Democratic Party, utterly and totally co-opted by it. And it's crazy to me how Harry Reid and the Democrats can embrace these people, because their real complaint is with the government that Harry Reid and the Democrats and the president have given us.
If you had one thing, you know, looking through your book and knowing you personally, if you had to say, gang, this is the one thing you have to know, this is the one thing you have to do, what would that be?
That your rights are natural and the government cannot take them away from you. And anybody in the government in whose hands we repose the Constitution that enacted any law that takes away your freedom is unworthy of governmental trust and must go. That starts with the Patriot Act, and it goes to the president starting his own war, and there are hundreds and hundreds of examples in between, and they're all in this book.
I know you address war in this. I'm gravely concerned about our troops. We've just started at, where is it, Uganda?
Yes.
Yeah, Uganda.
100 more combat troops.
We've got another combat unit now going into Uganda.
Didn't you know, Glenn, that Uganda is a dangerous threat to the national security of the United States? Who the devil has ever heard of the place?
Well, don't we get like 90% of our oil from Uganda?
Yeah, right.
This is really the Hillary Clinton crowd in the State Department exalting political correctness to an absurd and utterly destructive degree, that we would use our military as the president's personal police force.
Well, now you say that, and the other piece of that is the assassination orders. I personally am so torn on this because, you had what's his name over in Yemen, and he was a declared enemy of the United States. He was a declared combatant. He was working with Al-Qaeda, our enemy, and we got him. And that's a good thing. And on the same thing, there's a list of 20 Americans that no one will identify. The president does not have the right and the power to do this. I'm really torn on this. I think we're headed down towards real danger.
Well, I am not torn on it. And to me, what the president did was an impeachable offense. The Constitution could not be clearer. If the government wants to take the life, liberty, or property of any person, put aside whether he's an American or not, but this case is easier to argue because Alaki was American. It cannot do so without due process of law. By what standards did the president decide that he would be judge, jury, and executioner? Who else is on that list? If the president can do it to Alaki, can he do it to anybody else? This is not even a close call, in my opinion. And if Barack Obama can kill Alaki, can X, fill in the blank, who might be president in 5 years or 10 years, kill journalists who he believes are using their freedom of speech in a way that would negatively affect freedom? Look, there is no death penalty in Israel, but the Israelis only used it once. They tried Adolf Eichmann, against whom the evidence of guilt was as solid and overwhelming as any time in history. And why did they do that? To prove that the rule of law subsists in Israel. We tried Timothy McVeigh, even though we had overwhelming evidence of his guilt. At Nuremberg, we tried the Nazi high command. Which is greater, the president or the rule of law? It's not even a close call when you put the question that way.
Judge Napolitiano, a good friend, a great mind, a great patriot, and somebody that you should read his new book. It's Dangerous to Be Right When the Government is Wrong. You should read his book, and if he ever comes to town near you, he is one of the best speakers you will ever see. Most people don't even know when they see him coming, if you've never seen him speak. Most people at Fox, when I said, have you ever seen this man speak? They had no idea.
You know what? I was the warm-up act for the great one to whom I'm speaking now. We had a lot of fun with those gigs that we did. Maybe we'll do it again, Glenn.
Yeah, love to. Judge Andrew Napolitano, talk to you again, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.